All right, hey guys, we're back. Thanks so much for your patience. Paul, if you could just say something really quick and we can make sure that everything's working on your end.
Hello, this is me speaking quickly.
Perfect. All right, let me just get something set up here really quick.
Did you all come back? I hope you all came back.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it seems like everything's going well. Yep,
Yay.
they can hear everything. Yay, we're back. Okay, sorry guys for that quick interruption there. We're really excited to showcase to you guys what we have in store today. So, Paul, unfortunately, I think we missed your awesome introduction. So, if you wouldn't mind just saying hello again.
This is my awesome introduction. While the Emperor's been trying to fix it, I've been playing Dawn of War on a melodica. So this is the new weird soundtrack. I'm Paul. I'm doing the soundtrack. I've been doing it for about 9, 10 months. Very, very excited to finally be able to speak about it a little bit and to share some of the music. You kind of get cooped up in the studio and never actually get to play anything to anyone. So very excited to share it all. If anyone's got any questions, then fire away. But yeah, just looking forward, and I hope you like some of it,
Yeah,
if
I
not
mean,
all of it.
exactly. I mean, I think you said, you've been working on this project for a really long time.
Yeah. I, th- I,
So,
think, I think the thing with games, it's like when you're working on animations and soundtracks, is they take forever. You work on on a film soundtrack, and it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But I think the game, what's wonderful about it is you get time to actually digest all the music and you share ideas and see what people like and what they don't like. And then it comes back and you guys, up in Vancouver, kind of sending the stuff back and going, we like this, we don't like that. But it gives you a chance to experiment with sounds. Sometimes a little bit too long because then you can play on all your stuff too much. But it's really good like that because it just means you've actually got time to come up with this really unique sound. And particularly for Dawn of War 3, yeah, it was trying to come up with something which is just no one's ever heard of before and very weird for a soundtrack, but also very cool and hopefully, as I say, be really distinct to our game.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're really excited to showcase this. It's been under wraps for such a long period of time, and we're just really excited.
Do you guys, are you allowed to speak about it to all your relations or not? You kind of come in, you're never going to guess what I'm working on. Oh, well, I can't tell you. Sorry. Ask me again in October.
Yeah, ask me, Ben, in 6 months. I mean, it's with on our side of the industry too, right? Like we have such a long period of time where we just can't talk about what we're working on. It takes years and years to create games, so we feel your pain, Paul.
Well, I think what was cool was I came up to come and see you guys. I didn't meet you, Kat, but I met the very important people.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
No, at the end of last year, yeah, it's obviously the whole soundtrack is teamwork. You got that fantastic audio department up at Relic who have kind of been put up with me for so long and kind of go, what the hell is that? Or that's brilliant. And kind of, they guide you through you're trying to get on each other's wavelength a bit. So I came up at the end of last year. I think it was, God, I can't remember, is it November, maybe? And just spent 2 days chilling in the studio with you guys. And what was brilliant about it, as I say, it's just that first meetings and trying to get on everyone's wavelength and find out what is going on in people's heads when you've created this game and spent 1, 2, 3, however long it is, 4 years creating it. I've then got to try and get on that wavelength and put my stamp on it from a musical point of view, see what fits and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, we're just so excited to finally be able to showcase this. And there's so many factions that we haven't really been speaking about too much, like the orcs, for instance. We have a lot of orc fans out there, a lot of them watching today, and they haven't heard anything about the orcs really just yet. So we're really excited to be able to sneak those faction themes in.
Okay,
So
here's my question. Is orc with a K or with a C?
it's a K.
Definitely. You sure about that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh, the orcs are my favorite, not necessarily from a musical point of view, although they're pretty damn cool, but they're just absolutely insane. I remember
Yes.
when I saw the trailer, and it was kind of seeing that, and I just always picture them kind of these tiny, huge things with arms going along. Tiny, huge does make
Yeah.
sense. Arms ripping off people just for a laugh. And I think, the guy, James and Lynn in the audio department up at Relic, they were kind of going, well, just picture them having a party the entire time, just ripping off limbs and going around. And I was going, are they nice or not?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a party of murder, but a party nonetheless. That's basically what the orcs are all about. They like exploding things. And
But
who can blame them?
But that's the thing. Kind of, you go through again. You can lead the way because I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say. But you go through the different racial factions and trying to create distinct sounds for them, because obviously every time you're playing the game as one of them, and you want to be hearing the different sounds and the different approaches to them. And I think that's been the thing, is trying to create, I won't say the number in case people don't know, but the right number of different sounds for the guys to make it sound different enough, but at the same time really make it feel part of DAW.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to give you guys a super quick overview of what we're going to cover today, just so you guys are aware of what to expect. So obviously we're just going to talk to Paul a little bit about how he lands on these unique and fantastic themes for the Space Marines, Orcs, and the Eldar.
It's mostly because of coffee.
Lots of coffee, yes, yep. And then we're going to kind of just give you guys an exclusive sneak peek on those themes so you actually can know exactly what we're talking about. We're going to speak a little bit more for each theme. And then Paul's actually going to take us through a live audio demonstration. So it was really important that we make sure we can actually hear him. And now that that's all settled, we're really excited about that. He's actually going to be able to go more granular into how he composes each of these tracks. So if you guys have any questions, please just shout that out in chat. I'll be reading chat.
And what we thought we'd also do is do a bit of screen sharing, so you guys see some of the stuff and the way I actually write it, so you can hear some of the sounds as we're going along and kind of see some of the audio and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Might make it a bit more interesting.
Just two talking heads the whole time. Yeah, so we're really excited about the audio demonstration. He's going to be showcasing those themes and actually showcasing like how you layer each element on top of one another. And yep, like I said, just shout out any questions if you have them. We're here to talk today about music, so you could ask questions about other sound effects and whatnot, but I couldn't really guarantee that I'd be able to answer them for you today. But keep in mind, of course, we're on Skype. So I'm broadcasting what Paul is sending me through Skype to you guys. So the audio quality is not going to be exactly as it would be if you were playing Dawn of War 3 right now, but it's pretty close, and we're really excited with where we've gotten it. But just keep in mind that there may be some technical interruptions, but should be fine. We've already weathered like the initial storm. I think we've got this. And lastly, everything that we're showcasing today is work in progress. So Paul, I think you could probably speak a little bit more about which stage of completion each track is in. So I won't speak for you, but yeah, we're in various stages of completion with each of these different faction themes. So Keep in mind, it's not going to be like 100% what you might hear in-game, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, so we've done, as I say, work on it for about 9 months now, and we've got, I think, a month or two left on it. But as far as the actual sounds of it, the racial guys, we've done 2 that we're really happy with. Space Marine, I'm still working on a bit. I can even show you which bit I'm not happy with. But the sound of the Space Marines are there. It's sounding great. It's more of a mixed thing more than anything else. But again, I think it's quite fun, so you can actually see what I go through every day going, yeah, that's not quite working. Yeah,
that's basically a million sliders. That's your life. So you're just sitting there in front of a million different sliders like,
yeah, pretty much. What does this button do?
Exactly. I think we have already quite a few questions from chat, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to field those to you. So Velinor asks, what is your opinion on the soundtrack of the previous Dawn of War games? Have you listened to them? Did that inform kind of like how you approach the track for Dawn of War 3?
Definitely didn't influence it in the slightest, in the sense that I didn't listen to it actually until a couple of months ago, for 1 and 2, simply because, again, I wanted to come in totally fresh. And I said to everyone here, I'll research it as much as you like. I'll happily sit there playing away. But for me, I just wanted to bring something fresh to it. So I'm sorry, and I hope that doesn't disappoint. I actually really, really like both of them. I thought really cool, very, very becoming. And again, it's always that thing of moving it on. So kind of keeping it more modern, but at the same time, you're not going modern for modern's sake. I think they've all really got their place. Mm-hmm. I thought they fit. I thought they fit perfectly. I don't know what your guys think.
Absolutely. No, we're super stoked with our previous soundtracks. We're also really excited because, as you said, like, it's not about making it new just for the sake of making it new. It's just about putting your stamp on it, as you were talking about earlier. So.
And I think that's the thing. Again, when we chat about the style at the beginning, 9 months ago, of where we want to take this, things evolve so much over 9 months, and our initial conversations, I think you guys will probably agree, it's come on in leaps and bounds as far as well, I kind of like that, but then it would be quite good if we did that. And it's the same. It's the same in film soundtracks as well. You start off one way, yeah, we're going to have a band soundtrack, and then it ends up kind of Blade Runner, or it ends up full orchestra, or But you've got to try these things to find out what works and what doesn't. So yeah, so it's not trying to be different for different sake, but I intentionally didn't listen to any of them so that it wouldn't be informed by them. It would just be its own thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that really shows through in the end. I mean, everyone was crazy, loved the announcement trailer music. Super impressed. We had so many comments, and we still have comments today just being like, I love this music. I can't wait to hear what the final soundtrack is going to be. And I know that was a big thing for you, right? Because you were kind of like, I have no idea if people are going to like this, and you just kind of ready to throw it on the internet, and everybody just absolutely loved it.
Well, again, it's one of those things. You don't do it to try and again, sorry if this offends anyone, but you don't do these soundtracks to try and please everybody. You do it because it's your take on what a game is, or what a film is, or what a band is, or whatever. You do it, and you hope that people like it, and you hope that you're not effing it up. But you never know. And it was that thing, particularly with the announcement trailer. The guys, Abed, who is the director on it, and we wanted to do something completely different. Again, it's kind of, there's such a place for solo piano against dark, ripping of limbs and all this. Yeah, it's like The Godfather, isn't it? You're doing this in contrast. And similarly, there's a place for epic trailers, loads of strings and stuff, but I just wanted to do something different. So when everyone suddenly heard it was like, oh, thank God for that, because that's definitely informed my way that I'm going down with the main soundtrack. So if people didn't like it, I'd be, whoa, okay.
Uh-oh.
Got to go back over the last 6 months now.
But it really added such an ominous feel. I mean, you were talking about, of course, Axis did all the animation for the trailer, which is absolutely beautiful, and it was so creepy. All of the backdrops, all of the color palette, I mean, everything was just unnerving, very uncomfortable almost.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You go into a movie or you play a game, you want to do escapism. Well, I do anyway. I pay my money for a ticket. They go in, and whether I'm playing a game and I want 18 hours worth of escapism, or I'm watching a film and doing 90 minutes, there are so many parallels to every single thing and every single art form, because really what you're trying to do is just immerse yourself in the same way that you want the audience to be immersed. And I think you put your finger on it with the Axis guys. They created this really dark and really twisted world. And again, for me, I'm watching that just going, yeah, I'm immersed in this. And it's a long trailer, and fair play to you guys for having the balls to go with it, because then it's whatever it was, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, it might even be longer, but trying to create that kind of feel. And at the end of it, we just wanted to create something where people just went, I have no idea what I've just watched, but hell, I want to watch it again.
But I like it.
And again.
Yep. And I definitely think it achieved that. So we're super, super stoked about the reception that this has gotten. More questions from chat. I'm like, there's so many questions. I'm trying to keep up.
You guys are like the racial factions. This game, well, the trailer's good, but the rest of his music's, what the hell's that?
Can you imagine?
I'm sorry, Skype's not working. It's muted. It's hard.
I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulties, guys. So we have another question from Filthy Phil, PhD. He asks, what other projects has Paul worked on for movies and video games alike?
What other projects has Paul worked on? Which style of music for film, music for games?
Producing... Yeah, he's asking for both. Have you worked on other movies? Have you worked on other video games? What's your background essentially? Yeah,
I'm not totally shit, Phil. I'm trying my best. It's all right. I am. Yeah, I mean, I started off working with bands, basically, and arranging bands. I'm from Glasgow in Scotland, and there was a really cool music scene there. And then I got into film. I'd started kind of scoring some big TV series and stuff like that, and picked up a BAFTA. And then I got a film called Limitless, which had Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro in it. This is very LA. Here's my life story. I'm from LA. But yeah, I did a big film called Limitless. It went to #1 around the world, and then it all just got a bit mental. I did a film called Dread after that, and Dread was sort of defining moment as far as me finding, I think, a style that I really liked. Yeah, I'm used to working with 100-piece orchestras. I'm classically trained, but suddenly I just really got into I got a whole load of analog synths, basically. And I just really got into my analog world and creating weird and wonderful sounds I wouldn't say a la Blade Runner, but it was definitely that whole John Carpenter feel as well, and the whole 80s lot, but bringing it up to date. I hate it when people pastiche a style, so it's kind of taking elements of that but bringing it rip-roaring into the modern, and you tie it all together. My mission is, it shouldn't matter what genre music is. I just like people to like it. When you get a dance crowd and you take them to go and hear an orchestra and they hear your orchestra work and they're like, my God, this is great. And you hear a classical world and you take them to come and hear a hardcore rock band or something. It's just cool. So anyway, that's basically my background. Lots of kind of soundtracks then. Did some short films with the Minions. Just was nominated for an Emmy for Limitless's TV series. And then I did my first game. This is where you guys should be scared now, because this is only my second game. But I did my first game, which was Battlefield Hardline for EA, which was just incredible fun. And again, that was about a year and a half with the guys in San Fran. And I think that was a total learning curve as far as working out how music works in game, because obviously it works.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get as geeky as you like. I don't know how boring it'll get for people, but writing music for video games is incredibly different from writing for TV and film. So it's a real learning process as far as learning the technique to it. And the irony of all of this, and I've said this to the guys at Disney before, is the thing that prepared me the most for writing for video game was writing music for a Disney ride in the Epcot Center. So I can explain why later, but basically you have lots and lots of different tracks going on at the same time, and it can't sound like a cacophony, like a whole load of music all playing. It's got to sound nice. And it's the same thing with games. You've got so many different layers and pieces of music going on and stuff, but it's all got to have its place. So when they're all playing together, it sounds great. And if you hear them individually, they all sound great.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamic music system that we actually have in Dawn of War 3 that we really haven't talked about before. And we're really excited about this. I mean, I could be sitting playing Dawn of War 3 right next to my coworker. We could be in the exact same game, and we're experiencing wildly different things. I could be playing Space Marines. They could be playing Eldar. I could be losing terribly, and they could be just, like, kicking ass. And it's just completely different, right? Like, I could just be sitting in my base, gathering my resources, building my guys, while somebody else on the other side of the map is in a final confrontation, which really, I mean, the music is insanely important when it comes to that, because it's really the climax of the entire game, right? It's who's going to win and who's going to lose. So
totally. So my first question is, when you say you could be losing terribly, how have you been getting on?
Playtests can be a little rough in the office. Let me just say, the QA guys playing the game all day, every day, and they're all just amazing at it. So I'll pop in and I'll just be like, it's not fair, you have practice.
So you guys that don't get to do all the tests, all on Twitch and all out there, it's brilliant, because what you get to see is works in progress. So, and I haven't seen any works in progress on this other than the stuff that you guys send me, but I remember on Hardline, and I was up there, and it was brilliant, because suddenly everyone just downs tools. It's the greatest job in the world. Half an hour in the afternoon, everyone suddenly goes and plays against each other.
Yeah.
And you suddenly got the heads going off in one direction, the bodies going off in the other. It's like, okay, I think we need to fix that.
Yeah, no, definitely team-wide playtests happen all the time, and it's one of those, it's part of the culture of working at a video game studio.
And they call this work. But so
exactly.
But as far as the actual music system, what you say is so right. I mean, it's a brilliant, brilliant engine that you guys have got, because what basically happens, and again, I can show you in a little bit, but when I create a piece of music, if I'm writing a piece of music for a band, you've got, in basic terms, you've got a bass guitar, you've got a guitar, you've got a vocalist, and you've got a drummer. So there's 4 tracks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they all play together, and that's it. And it's a 3-minute track. Whereas you come into this game, and it's, okay, well, I'm coming in, so the music starts. Oh, I might just go off and go and get a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever. So the music's still going on, but then it's going to get really boring if it's on loop for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all you hear. So that's kind of one layer. And suddenly you're in there, and I know we're going off, and suddenly there's a battle coming on. So, it's getting a little bit scary or a little bit tense. So then you've got another layer coming on at the same time as layer 1. So we've now got basically 2 tracks all playing at the same time. And suddenly the battles are getting bigger. So now we've got the 3rd track kicking in. But sometimes you might not necessarily have all of the 3 tracks playing at the same time. You might suddenly mute the 2nd track. Sorry, my hands are above my mixing desk here. You might suddenly kind of lower the fader for the 2nd track. and then suddenly the fourth layer might come in. So it's incredibly complicated the way that it's done, but the idea being that you never have the same experience when you're playing this game twice. If you turn left at one stage and you turn right at another, the music's going to go in a different direction, or the music's going to suddenly ramp up, or it's going to get scarier, or it's going to get darker, or it's going to get dancier, or however. So you're never going to have the same feeling twice whenever you've gone through the game, which I think is an amazing thing.
Yeah, it adds so much to replayability, and especially it's the same thing when you're playing multiplayer, right? Like, you can't predict what the other person's going to do, so every game, and that's the longevity of it, right? Every game feels different, and having a dynamic music system where that music is actually changing for you on the fly based on what you're seeing, based on what you're doing, that was just a really important part, that was really important aspect for us to bring in to just kind of further the experience and differentiating those between different players.
Yeah, I think the only thing you can guarantee in multiplayer is that I get destroyed. So
you and me both, Paul. I feel your pain.
But no, but all jokes aside, that is the thing. Yeah, it's fantastic. I think when we were writing, and you could hear, for example, one of the planets, one of the places that you're playing in the game, without saying too much, it was our first one that we'd done, and it was kind of, well, where are we at here? This battle is on a scale of 1 to 3, or 3 to 5, or 5 to 7 out of 10 intensity. And so suddenly we did a scale of 10. So when all the layers, all the faders are up, it should have been at a 10. And my God, the speaker system was going boom, and your headphones are going, and you've got all the fires going on, and all the guns and the armory and everything. And it just became this cacophony. So in actual fact, the rest of them were like, okay, well, it's really cool, but the music doesn't actually need to get up to. So it's more a case of then making you feel your way through the game. And yeah, it still gets high, and we still get intensity, but it's not like the music's really riding roughshod over it. There are so many elements, and Lynn and James and your audio department, yeah, they're just brilliant as far as some of the effects they put in, and everyone else in that audio department. It's just, yeah, it's everything working together. It's not a pop video, it's not a music video, but music's a really important part of it. Mm-hmm. But if the music didn't have the sound effects, it would be nothing except for great. So yeah, so it's all those elements together. But honestly, seeing how it's developed over the last 9 months, 10 months, whatever, it got me really excited suddenly seeing some of the gameplay footage that they've recorded for me, so I could see it all in action a little bit. I was like, oh my God, this is so good.
So I have another question from Adeptus Nubis. Fantastic name.
These are great names, guys.
Yeah, I know, they're fantastic. What really inspired you for the trailer song in particular?
I love that you call it a trailer song.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, I always think of music as songs. It doesn't matter whether a song has vocals or not. It's a track of music, and the idea of a song is that it should hit you emotionally. And it definitely has with the trailer and also with the game. So what inspired me? Hell, I don't know. I really don't. Again, just that whole feel. Abed, the guys at Access, you guys all just saying, right, let's do something different. Let's do something that people have never heard before. And I just went off and I started mucking around with my synthesizers, and I started creating sounds. And I will show you later on the main sound and how I created it, or a little bit of it. I won't tell you exactly how. But it was weird. I had some weird 80s basses pulsing underneath, the dum 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 dum, and they're always morphing. I like things that are always morphing. I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can screen share this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share screen. This is where you realise what a technical idiot I am. So you've got the screen sharing on there.
Yeah.
In fact, there you go. You see, I did tell you that I'm a technical idiot. And when you're not, what you can see is these ones down here, some of these keyboards. So these all have these little buttons here. So every time you turn them around, they are changing sounds. And there are millions of sounds there. And then over here, can you see all this?
Yes, yep.
So over here, we have a large one of those keyboards. Over there. And so all of this stuff have millions of sounds on them. And they all then they tie in basically with my actual computers. So when you're mucking around with sound, so you have these basses kind of going bum, 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 instead of just repeating itself. Mm-hmm. So in the 80s, it would mostly repeat itself, whereas now you got those sounds and it can just morph it a little bit. And then it needs a theme. And this is the thing that has been really challenging with this soundtrack. And you've nailed it whenever it was, kind of 3 months ago. But it's not a traditional soundtrack. There's no orchestra on this soundtrack, guys. Sorry. It's very weird and it's very unique. So, but you still need a tune. You still need something which can draw people into it. And I think that was also the challenge with the trailer was, okay, well, you're in this weird sound. It's kind of, is it set 2 million years in the future, or is it set 2 million years ago? It shouldn't matter. What it should feel is that it's just this otherworldly feel. And so trying to come up with a sound which doesn't sound like a traditional instrument, but at the same time can do a melody. Anybody can do loads of drums going. Anyone can do a bass line going bom, 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 bom. But to try and create a sound which isn't being played on an orchestra, which is really easy, or played on a piano, which is really easy, or I don't know, played on a melodica, which is really easy. Why is this even here? This isn't in the game.
I don't know, but I'm really glad that it is, because while we were figuring out the technical difficulties, you're just sitting there playing. I'm like, this is fantastic. I wish I was streaming this right now.
You can have a stylophone. There they go. What inspired you to do the Dawn of War soundtrack? Well, it was this one here. So that's the thing in the studio. You just have, it's like toys. You have lots of toys, and you play around until you get one that's right. And so creating this sound took me, I kid you not, about 2 weeks for one sound. And I mucked around with it, and I morphed it, and I put distortion on it, and I mucked around with it. But in the end, that was the sound that then became the sound of Dawn of War. And it's weird how I call it a color palette. And that's my way of referencing to James Lynn, everybody else in Vancouver, of, well, look, now we found our color palette, which is the equivalent of an orchestra. If you had an orchestra, you've got strings, and you've got oboes, and you've got woodwind, and you've got brass. Well, what is going to be our color palette? What plays the instruments? Because it's not a traditional sound. So you find all these different synthesizers and the different analog sounds and the different patches, and then you start putting them all together and see what you got. So I don't know, it's a bit like a logic puzzle. I'll take that, join the dots. I'll take that, and then we'll get rid of that, but we'll have that, and we'll have a bit of that, and we won't have that. But that was it. And once I nailed the theme, everything else on that trailer, to go back to, is it Nubus? Nubus's question?
Yep.
God, I go off at a tangent. This is what happens. You can speak to anyone in the studio. But I think after I nailed the theme and the melody, everything else just came together, because then you can really go for it. And I wanted it to have an arc, and when the big Space Marines at the end coming in, every time you think you've reached somewhere, it goes up another layer.
Yeah.
And that was it. Similarly, the feel for me with the whole of Dawn of War was just, they're lemmings. The war never ends. It just carries on and on and on and on. And it's not that they don't have a purpose in life, but war is futile, and it carries on and on. And it's, you might win the battle, but you never win the war, because the war is never won, because there's always more battles and more battles. So it was always this feeling of dum 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 dum,
trudging on.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. It's like a really slow march. It's like a trod, trodding on, plodding on. And everything that goes on, again, it goes dum 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 da da dum ba da dum dum boom boom boom, and then the big Space Marines at the end, dum boom bum. It's all epic, but at the end, and he looks up and he knows that this is his destiny. It was that kind of nod of recognition. It sounds ridiculous talking about this about a trailer, but it was that nod of recognition, kind of going, okay, I've done my bit.
This is my life now.
This is my life. And then he comes back, and then all you hear at the end, as he's crushed and you see all the bodies coming down, all you then hear is this dum bum 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 bum, carrying on to the next battle, trailer 2, whatever. Does that answer the question? Is that weird?
Nope, that makes sense to me. But of course, keep asking questions, guys. I have so many. I'm just trying to filter through them all. We have another question from Velinor again, and so he's asking, what is your favorite faction, both in terms of musical style and also just your personal preference?
Orcs.
Yeah, we got an orc guy. Yeah.
That sounds really weird. Orcs, just because they're so mental. I love the Space Marines. The Space Marines are, I think they were the first one that I did, and I think I would say they're the most traditional in the sound, in the sense that there's a bit of organ, there's a bit of brass, there's a bit of oomph to it. They are the most epic as they're going along. I love the Eldar, which we'll go into in detail in a wee bit. I love the Eldar simply because they're the fastest faction, going along. And obviously you guys will all correct me. They're not the fastest faction. But as far as I'm aware, they're the fastest faction.
That's right.
And I quite fancy some of them as well. But yeah, so you've got these. I look at these images for too long. But yeah, so the Eldar is really percussive, lots of stuff going on, but then you've got these really cool kind of glidey synths over the top because they're gliding everywhere and super fast. But the orcs for me, I just love because they're absolutely insane and they're just having a party.
Oh, well, there's so many like guitar elements in the orc theme as well,
Uh-huh.
which it just makes it really fun.
Yeah, but really weird guitar sounds. So
Yes.
yeah, because I think to begin with, we're kind of like, okay, let's try chugging, let's try. I mean, we started off trying to make them sound hip hop. It just didn't quite work. And then we went guitar, but it sounded too bandy. But then we kept the guitars in, and now it's a contrast between, I don't know, guitars meets dubstep meets something or other. They all go a bit mental, and then you've got the guitars doing loads of kind of distortion over the top as well, and feedback. And feedback, I think, is my word for orcs. Feedback meets a cool bass line.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long, but I do have one more question, which was from Kael'tos. When you made the soundtrack, what would you say are the most crucial standout elements for each of the corresponding factions?
Oh, good question. Kind of what I've just got onto. Creating that individual sound, and again, very much teamwork and very much trial and error, because I just got sent a load of images basically of Space Marines, of orcs with a K, and of Eldar, and as I was working on them, again, I just surround myself in the studio. Up there on the wall, don't know if you guys can see it.
Yep.
But up there is a whole load of images, so I should probably turn this off now, but a whole load of images from the game, and I just surround myself with them so that I get a feel for, I'm living the game really. So anything that I get sent just helps me immerse myself in it. So as I say, so Space Marine really it was a case of, well, I always pictured them as quite, boom, we are these huge guys coming in. So that for me, as I say, there was something about big horns, really big brass section with them to play the tune. They felt kind of the most majestic's the wrong phrase, but yeah, just massive. So horns and organ were pretty much, they're the main elements of those. And then obviously around it, you've got loads of distorted synths and basses and so on. The Eldar, as I say, it was the speed of the Eldar, I guess. And I kept on speeding it up and up and up and up and up because every time I played something back, it just felt too slow for them if they're gliding around the place. And I think that was the thing of not making them too nice, They're all going around ripping off arms to an extent. There's no one that I'm really going to fall madly in love with out of those guys. So unless you're into that. But so the feel with the Eldar, as I say, was just fast percussion, fast feel. They're kind of going off everywhere. Again, you've got to have melody in them somewhere to emphasize the fact that as soon as you hear it, this is the Eldars. So for them, as I say, it was these glidey synthesizers really. And then bells. We use bells quite a lot in Eldar. Again, I don't know why. It just kind of worked for it, I guess. So you got that contrast between the and something nice glidey up there, and then some bells, and it felt like a nice contrast. As I say, and the orcs was just carnage. Just I don't know. I just go back to it. If you're asked to describe something, it doesn't matter whether it's a faction or a film, as I say, or a band. Someone says, right, name your favorite band. Go on, Kat. What's your favorite band?
No one would know what it is.
For God's sake.
Yeah, no, it's just a prog rock band from Seattle.
Come on, this is your one chance to name drop them.
All right. My favorite band is Richelieu. There you go.
Okay, you're right. No one knows who they are.
Exactly.
But how would you describe them?
Tool meets Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's your description for someone that's never heard of them. So similarly, you've then got to come up with something for a faction. Someone says, right, what is the Eldar? Hell, I don't know. They are these characters that do blah, 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 blah. And in 10 lines, or 10 words probably, I've then shut my eyes and trying to get a mental image of them, other than obviously what I'm downloading and seeing and have seen before the orcs. So then, that mental image then gets translated into that. And the orcs, there is just something about the description of them, which James and Lynn gave me, which was literally, they're these party animals. They're going around having a party, ripping off limbs, but they don't really see too much bad in what they do. They're just, IQ of 5, going along, So of course I then go around the studio like this all day, trying to get into it as I'm listening to the track. My arms down by my sides. I think if anybody came in, they'd just think I'm a total weirdo. But yes, and that is literally it. You get a 2-line description because that's all I want. Anything more than that complicates it. So in the same way that your favorite band is that, and that's your description of them, that's what I wanted for the factions. They gave me those.
Yeah.
And I just went away and started playing around with music. And every time you think you've nailed it, there's a sound that's not quite right. So sometimes music sounds incredibly easy to do because it just sounds right, but it might have taken bloody months to do. And there'll be other times when it sounds really complicated, but in actual fact, it's incredibly simple to do. And I think the thing with the races would just nailing it on the head. The orcs were actually, I think, probably the hardest to do. But once I found my tone for it, I don't know, I just love them. They're cool.
Yeah. I think that's a great time to actually showcase the themes for you guys. So I think we're going to start with the Space Marines, and then the Eldar, and then the Orcs. So Paul, we're just going to be muted while we play that off so that we're not providing any background noise, and then I'll just let you know when we're back on.
And only get back in touch if you like them, all right?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so we have just heard the Space Marine faction theme.
Oh, so we're on to Space Marine, are we? Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I'm just double checking the chat to make sure everything went fine. Yep, there we go. Cool, seems like everybody heard that. I don't know if you wanted to say a little bit about how you kind of landed on that. I know we have already kind of discussed it, but they did just get to hear it, so I'm sure we'll have some more questions as we go through each of these themes.
So Space Marine, big disclaimer, this is the only one that is still work in progress. But again, the feel of it, and I'll show you a little bit, but that's pretty much the horns. So if I give you, let's do a screen sharing thing here so you can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So share screen, start. Does that work? Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So the Space Marine stuff that you just heard is probably this. So my thing with that, can you hear that all right, yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So my thing with that, these are the different stems. So the stems are what we use when we're mixing, and it's mixed down. So this is all audio here. So you can hear some of the different kind of stuff that's here. I'm not happy with the drums in this, so we're going back in. It's a little bit dum, jum, jum, but the feel of them. So if I get rid of the drums for you, can hear some of the different elements going on. So here, for example, we have, what have we got? Some brass going on. Oh no, these are the leads. So that's your organ going on. So that by itself sounds pretty traditional, I'd say. And we stick in some orchestra. And that's the horns going down there. So by itself sounds quite traditional. And then you start chucking in various other stuff down here. So we can see this, but these are kind of all the little, I would say, effects and pads. Mm-hmm. So if you play these kind of separate, and again, this is just to kind of quickly show you some of the sounds that are in there. And we got a great big tubular bells. That was a big thing for the Space Marines.
Nice. Yeah.
And then you just, you start putting them away. I mean, some of the percussion I like a lot. Stuff that's for me a little bit too, at the moment, is this. But you start putting them in and kind of seeing what works and what doesn't. We've got some cool pads down here. So that's the kind of stuff that I think is the kind of 80s, but kind of bring it up to date. And then you start just, say, putting a few together and seeing what works and what doesn't after. So what have we got? Here's a few. There's the tubular bell. Let's take it back a bit. Get some leads in. So there you go, there's Space Marine.
Yeah, well, it's sounding great so far. I think we're going to go ahead and pop into the Eldar now. So I'm going to switch us over again and preview this theme for you guys. Super excited. I'm biased. I love the Eldar, so I was super giddy when I heard this one for the first time. As you said, it really has some of those awesome, like, gliding, floating kind of elements to it, but at the same time, it really feels like you're marching into war. So I'm really excited to showcase this. I'm going to go ahead and cue up that theme now. All right, they just heard the Eldar theme.
So again, with all of this, again, it's not kind of good. Oh, there's still a few changes to make. But what we just wanted to do today, guys, was say just give you a bit of a intro to it. It's all obviously still to be kind of final mixes, etc., and still tweaks. But we're just really excited to share it with you to kind of so you can hear what direction it's going in.
Oh my gosh, the chat is hilarious right now. They're just, I love the bells.
What are they saying? Is Eldar good or bad?
They're loving it. They're loving it. Yeah.
Right answer.
Loving the bells.
That's funny. So Eldar, we'll go into a bit more detail in a minute after we've done the orcs.
Sure.
I can show you exactly sort of how I composed it. But again, so you've got the same thing. Have I still got screen sharing on here?
Yes.
Okay, so exactly the same kind of thing. You've got the mix going on here. So this is the full mix. So again, I think the percussion gives it a really strong feel of war, for want of a better phrase, you've really got that doom and gloom going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the idea of the bells, again, is that floatiness. So and again, the idea with all of these, we get to the end, it's just getting that tune in your head, the melody in your head, and the sound of it, so that you get introduced to whoever you're playing the game as. So we've got. So if we take the individual parts again, what we got all the percussion down here. So they're pretty epic, these bad boys. We've got stuff like our risers in here. Is that the riser? So again, all of these are just the different elements that I use to create the track. So by themselves, some of them sound really weird, but it's that thing of by the time they're all in there together, it's the same. It sounds really weird comparing it to an orchestra, but it is. You've got an orchestra, you've got strings, violin tune sounds beautiful with horns and an oboe and a flute. That's a really lovely combination. So what you're coming up with here is, without some of the elements, it just sounds obviously very, very spacious. So if you had the synths by themselves, it sounds weird. Where are the synths up here? What have we got? I think that's all the synths in it, yeah. Which sounds weird, but then we start getting some drums behind it. And then you've got the bells themselves, obviously on the top, which again sound weird by themselves. But stick them all together, and you get just that big kind of epic feel, really. So again, we'll get onto that one in a bit more detail in a minute. If you want to sort of play the orcs, play the orcs, play
Absolutely.
the orcs.
I know. Everyone's really excited for orcs. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cue that up really quick. Alrighty, and we're back.
Sure, this is awful. This is like being back at school in an exam going, is this the right answer, teacher?
Pull up chat here again. There we go. Oh, yeah. It's scrolling too fast. I can't even read it all. It's chaos.
Orcs a go-go?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, fine. I live to breathe another day. Thanks, Emperor. I appreciate it. So again, what you got up here, this is the orcs kind of kicking in. And so you'll hear, you see what I mean about the mad craziness? I don't know, it seems to fit. I'm just kind of picturing them all going down, having a party, ripping off the arm. So again, what have we got here? We've got some, well, we've got the drums, again, obviously. So these are some of the different elements in there. And of course, what you really want is just the lame tambourine by itself. This is how you can...
I want to hear the tambourine. Yep.
There you go, orcs. So there you go. That's what I mean by some of the elements just sound weird by themselves, but in actual fact, without it, believe me, it does miss it. So all of these things are obviously what we then take off at mix. So then what have we got? We got some lovely pads going on down here. I mean, the bass is kind of, for me, where it's at with them. So. And then you double that up with a different bass, hopefully, somewhere. Where's my bass? Give me my bass. Bass wobble. Oh, there you go. This is for the middle bit. So that's their party going on. And then what we've got down here, we've got some electric guitar. All very weird. And then we've got some weird glitchy kind of stuff going on. And then we stick it all together, as I say, and it just gives this bombastic party, really. So there you go, that's the orcs.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks so much for showing that off. Now I think it's kind of up to you what you want to show for the audio demo kind of portion. I mean, we've been doing that a little bit in between just to kind of get a better sense. It's nice to hear it in full and then kind of break it down and then hear it in full again.
Well,
but,
why don't I just... I'll just do a quick sort of 5 minutes where people can actually see a sequence, I guess, and see what it takes. Because what you've all seen there, guys, is just the audio that we used to make it. And I say we, as in me, James, Lynn, up at Relic, just everybody. We go into that and then kind of work out what's going to work in which layers. And obviously, this isn't the gameplay music. This is for the different kind of factions. And we started off trying to write, I guess, the 3 different factions. And it's really bloody hard to write that in 5 seconds. So I just kind of went away and wrote 3-minute tracks, basically picturing myself as those races, as the Eldar, as the Orcs, and as the Space Marines. And then from a 3-minute track, we then take it down to 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is, the different kind of sounds that you hear in the game as you play it. But so doing it as a 3-minute track just makes it a bit easier to get into the vibe, I guess. So when I did that, obviously you start off with a blank slate. You can see it here. This is a blank page. I'm just going to get some sounds up. But this is what I start off with. So I use a program called Digital Performer. I know loads of people use Logic and whatever else, but for me, I use Digital Performer. So this down here at the bottom, you see like all these different colors here. Mm-hmm. This slot here, this is all of the audio. And then as you go up, this is, again, I don't know who's a geek, who's not a geek, but as far as MIDI is what you use to actually play the sounds themselves. So this is all the sounds. So this is all the different parts that then create the audio. So my percussion might be down here in this template. Got some orchestra stuff up there. And this is all the percussion that's making the game. So all of these different sounds. I'll stop scrolling in a minute, I promise. There you go. So all of these bad boys up here are kind of all the percussion that we're using for Eldar, because obviously Eldar's thick on the percussion. So again, can solo some of them up, I guess. Who knows if this will work or not? This will be a bloody miracle. Normally takes 10 hours to get these programs going.
Well, so, Skype is probably not helping, right?
Hello. What have we got? Let's have a look. 17. Oh, it's working. Very good. So as you go along, each of these are every single individual sound that I use to create. So up here, as I say, is kind of where lots of my percussion is. as you're going down. So if I was to play that in live, it's going to sound awful, but it's kind of one of those. Here's one I prepared earlier. So with those all together, it's the percussion kind of thickening up a bit. Get those in there as well. And that was kind of my thinking for it. Was just lots of different percussion kind of going on, really sounding pretty meaty. And then it was just the bells. So it obviously gets very boring after 3 minutes going dum dugga dugga dum dugga dugga dum dugga dugga dum. So you got all of this lot here, which kind of breaks it up a bit. And again, this will be very boring for everybody that actually writes music. But you have this kind of stuff here, so you can actually see what you're writing. So plays it on music. So if you want to see your music, bum 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 ba da da bum ba ba bum ba ba da da dum ba da da dum, and you just start mucking around with sounds really and seeing what works and what doesn't. So I'm kind of going like, well, I found this sound, and I hate using sounds that are what I call out the box, which is kind of going like, wow, oh, that sounds good, we'll play that.
Right.
And I've said to Lynn before as well, your audio person up at Relic, that it's so much easier if you just do a soundtrack like that because the sound's already there. It's like, ooh. But it's really boring because everything else sounds like that. So although, again, it might sound incredibly simple, what you actually end up doing for ages is just tweaking with sounds and making them sound completely different to what you got before and creating layers. I went off, what was it? I just smashed a load of stuff for the Eldar. I went out, you can't see it, but there's a car park out there, a parking structure. And I just took a whole load of garbage cans. I hit against a wall. And I know this is really weird and I hope the police don't come. But you turn all of that into samples. So you've hit things, you've done all that. Again, for me, it's just creating sounds which people haven't got. So obviously you use some sounds which people have got and that's all fine. They're kind of sample libraries. But as long as you blend it in with your own stuff. So as I say, just going off and hitting things. Yeah, you end up playing different rhythms, layering it over against each other. I mean, on my Limitless soundtrack, I ended up just recording myself typing and just recorded those and then made basically a loop out of those because it was to do with a scene where he was typing. So it's the same thing. I like using sounds which are particularly relevant, I guess. Mm-hmm. So the sounds themselves, as I say, we go up to the bells. We got a few kind of different layers kind of going on. And again, by itself, my kind of thinking was, well, it's a bit Hammer House of Horror. So again, you kind of just got to be careful because you don't want to go too much down that side. Right. The percussion takes it right out of Hammer House of Horror and right into Dawn of War. But again, it's coming up with a melody which isn't a traditional melody. You wouldn't really expect many melodies. I can't think of that many. You've got obviously Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells, I guess, where you got Halloween. But in general, there's not that much stuff on the bells. And for some reason, it just seemed to fit in with the Eldar. But then you got the other side of it, which is the floaty, glissy pads. Because again, they're super fast coming off. I remember seeing them in the trailer for the first time. I was like, wow, they're so cool and they look fantastic. And just the speed that they suddenly come down and go around the place. Mm-hmm. And although the percussion does that, the percussion makes them feel quite meaty, quite chunky. So it was a case of, okay, well, what can we do to sort of brighten that up to a degree? So we got some sounds. Ooh, where are we? Are we down here? Soon find out. No, it's definitely not that. So we got some weird things like that. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Which again, by itself, everyone's like, what the hell is that? But you start playing a tune on it, and they sound weird. So again, you won't even hear that in the mix because you suddenly start layering up against all these very weird sounds. And of course, I actually can't find any pads now, which is great. Where's the stuff that I used for Eldar? You got those going on. You've got, no, it's the bells. This is great. You can tell I'm a real pro at this, can't you? Here's one I prepared earlier on. Hang on. Where are we? Come on, give me some sounds. Here you go. They're all down here. So tracks. Let's get that up. Is that going to work for me? Wait a minute. Let's get tracks up. Tracks.
I don't know how you keep track of all these different programs you have open. I think I'm bad, and I just look at this and I'm.
Oh
my God.
Do you want to see the other window? Here you go. Here's the other window. Can I screen share the other window? Let's try.
I think you can.
Switch screen. Let's go to that one. Can you see that one now?
No, it didn't change, but.
Oh, start. Here you go.
There we go.
This one over here is the one that's got all the different samples on. So these are connected to tons and tons of different computers, which have got thousands of samples on. And if you're lucky, you get a mixing desk up sometimes for when you're actually mixing.
Gotcha.
So no idea where that is. Computer will probably crash now. But it's all good when they're up there. There you go. There's the mixing desk.
Aha.
So as you're mixing, and obviously I go to a different studio to actually mix the thing down, but these are all the different sounds in the meantime to give me a kind of rough guide of some of the sounds. So you can see there's about 500 tracks in here.
Oh my God.
Which then make up this this cacophony of sound. But anyway, let me get you back onto the other screen, because the other one is way more interesting. Hello, Skype. I shouldn't have done that, should I? Right, hang on a minute. Skype. Yay, here we go. Right, switch windows. Switch screen. This is definitely the last time I'm switching. Sorry, guys. Sorry about this, guys. So these, with a bit of luck, are some of the sounds that create the kind of glitzy bit up there. Is this going to work? No. Come on. Here we go. So we get some of these guys going. This is when you end up talking to yourself so much during the day. Here we go. So we've got pads going on. Can you hear those?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the kind of tunes that play up the top. And that for me is kind of running like the wind. So you kind of get those kind of up there. You then get them tied in. Those kind of things. And then we get the percussion coming in underneath it. Anyway, so that's kind of how you go about it. But I think, one of the things, going back to that whole creating original sounds, it's what the most fun part of my job is, and what I get to do. And the wonderful thing about doing this score has been actually getting to, as I say, get some time to kind of muck around. So we had this thing. Oh, can you hear that?
Yep.
Had this thing where, for the trailer, as I say, kind of going off and trying to find some sounds and create some sounds. If I can get a bit of mixing desk going on here, you can see. Here we go. So I will show you how to create a sound. There you go. That's your last thing you get from me. Mute. Very basically. So I created a sample about 4 years ago of an orchestra. I've recorded various orchestras, obviously in different soundtracks. And you kind of got. Yeah, so it's just like very basic sound. Which obviously is totally not Dawn of War at all. But this is me, when whoever it was earlier on, sorry, I can't remember who your name was saying, how do you create the sound? So you start mucking around with it and you put on distortion, because the world cannot have enough distortion and it just feels right. And I think It's called Decapitator. It's a Sound Toys plugin. This is a starter for 10, and it just mucks around with the sound. Really, you've got Punish. I like that button. And then suddenly it's like, okay, well, let's muck around with the sound a little bit more. And all these things, you can muck around with the tone. Makes it brighter or not brighter, or So you kind of muck around with all of these things and all the various sounds. And then I've got another one here, another plugin. It's called Diamond Drive. It's a Motu thing. This would be one, more distortion. Stick on big, kind of reverby kind of thing. What we've got here at 100%, there's a Lexicon reverb, like those. And again, so this takes days. Obviously, what you're seeing here is just the quick version of it, but to create this. And that's kind of how then the tune started. Was going like, well, it's edgy. A sound by itself just sounds a bit boring, but it's kind of, if you add a bit of gliss to it and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I kind of got into it. So it's like. And that was pretty much then after that, I was like, this is the sound. It's only taken 2 months or however long to create this thing. But then having got that for me just really felt, I don't know, it felt like I was in the middle of Dawn of War. So I hope you all agree.
Absolutely. No, so just to tie that back in with the trailer again, Adeptus Nubis was asking if what you just played was indeed the same kind of sound from the trailer.
Yeah, so that's the sound which I'd created for the trailer, and then after that I was mucking around with it and kind of filtering it and obviously coming up with different things. But as a concept, then the kind of bending, the whole sounds really bloody dark to me. So then I started adapting that, but with different sounds, doing the same kind of wow, wow, and it's just. Again, for me, it's really edgy. It's really edge of your seat stuff. So it's getting different sounds to kind of do that. And then not just, obviously, that, but different kind of versions of that and taking that as a basis. You then kind of go, okay, well, so even in Eldar, sometimes she, she's got up there the kind of the high glissy pads. And they're doing the same kind of thing. And that's a kind of recurring feature of a lot of the soundtrack kind of coming on, because again, it's just not sitting on one note. It's always frenetic, kind of going on, looking for the next battle, looking for the next arm to rip, Mr. Orc.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking us through the audio demonstration. I think, at least for me as well, like it's a huge help to be able to look behind the scenes and actually see how all these things are layered. One on top of another, really, because it's just one of those things that when you just hear the final product, right? Like you don't know. It was you were saying it earlier, saying like, oh, sometimes it's more work than you thought, and sometimes the things that you might think would be really complicated were actually quite easy to do. And I know you're like calling out sounds and saying, oh, this one took me 2 weeks, and then this one took me like just one afternoon when we were talking about it earlier, and I was just like, I would have no way of knowing.
But I think that's the thing is when you actually get the tune, it doesn't matter then what you're playing it on. You got. Whatever. Once you've got a theme, it's easy to adapt it to other things, but it's coming up with the different sounds. For today, the racial sounds and the faction sounds, coming up with what makes them instantly identifiable. So when you hear it in the game, it's like, whoa, that's the Eldar. Whoa, that's the Space Marine. Whoa, that's that. And we try to do that with all of the game, from the ability of the engine, as we said earlier on, to kind of make it sound different with lots of different layers, from the ability of the racial guys themselves, the different factions, so they sound different. So you should always kind of get a different experience whenever you're playing the game. That was always the thinking behind it. So it's never the same twice. Yeah,
I can't wait. I mean, of course, as we keep building the game, like the audio makes it in at a specific pace, right? I mean, there's so many different hooks, for lack of a better term, that we have to make sure that the audio gets triggered at this particular gameplay moment. But I think that's the important thing to note with stingers that I don't think we touched on it too much, but the gameplay, the music stingers that you've been working on, which are going to kick into the game at specific times. So that's just, for lack of a better word, it's like embellishment, right?
Yeah, so the stingers are they've taken quite a long time. Very much fun. Thank you, Lynn, for bearing with me. But it's they've been pretty cool from a point of view of the stingers guys are the two little 1 second things. You've won, you've lost, you've done this, you've done that. It's things that are kind of signposting it around, just to kind of help. And it does give you a feel, the more you hear them, the more as you go along, it really gives you this feel of, whoa, I've just done this. Whoa, I've just done this. Whoa, I've just done this. And it's hard to make those without sounding boring. So again, if you're playing it as an Eldar, or you're playing it as an Orc, or you're playing it as a Space Marine, the stingers are very much in the style of how you're playing it. So they're all based on these, again, the color palette, what you just heard today, those different tunes. They're all based on the sounds in that. But it's trying to make it different enough so that they don't get boring every time you hear them. And believe me, they don't get boring. It really helps with the game. It really adds to the excitement of it. And yeah, you guys up there are geniuses, the way you kind of get them all in there and fit it and make it all sound not just great, but how they fit and how they trigger. So when you've done something, it creates a hook, to trigger off another sound. I take my hat off to you guys on the technical aspect. You're brilliant.
Well, I think that pretty much about wraps it up, but wanted to say thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time out of your day to talk to the community and answer their questions. This has been a lot of fun. Again, we're so excited to finally show you guys behind the scenes what we've been working on, and we just couldn't be happier that you're excited with what you've heard.
Woohoo! Well, thank God for that.
Yeah. No more surprises for you now. You're good.
It'll sound even better by the time it is all mixed and in the game. But I think that's the thing, as I say, these are the factions. You've then got the gameplay music, which is a completely different beast. There's so much music in it kind of throughout the game, because obviously there's so many hours worth. And again, you're just really excited to share it with. So, yay!
Yay! And I did just want to note, I saw you guys asking in the chat if we would actually be able to share the faction themes on YouTube, for instance, so you could just go back at any point and listen to them. We are going to put that up on YouTube for you guys after this, so just stay tuned and we'll let you know on our social channels when that's available.
But wait until they're properly mixed before you download the full themes, all right, guys?
There you go. There you go. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. I will see you soon, all right?
All right. Cheers.
Bye.